2009 is where it all started for the Souls genre when FromSoft and Sony teamed up to create what would become an industry-changing genre with Demon's Souls. Now I'm sure everyone knows the rules, but the object of these games isn't to never die, but to die and learn from your mistakes and get better and better each time. You've got environmental storytelling, some form of flask to heal your health, and your mana, and you can recover your lost souls or experience if you can make it to your death spot before dying again or risk losing it all. I made a video last month on Souls-like games and how they're starting to get a little repetitive in my eyes and feel like they've oversaturated the market. Well, this is going to be a more positive video on the subject. These are the top Souls-like games in no particular order you've heard about but probably never played. But you probably should.
Hello.
Code Vein. In simple terms, this is an anime Souls-like. Honestly, that tagline alone should have made this the best-selling Souls game of all time. Do you see these character models? Come on. It has the best enemy variety of any Souls-like, at least to me, and you can easily switch around and experiment, with classes on the fly, encouraging experimentation. Also, the character creator might be the best in a Souls-like game, and the abilities you get look amazing. It makes combat look a bit flashier than you would normally expect or see out of a Souls game. And having an AI partner with you also makes this one of the easier Souls-likes and could be a nice gateway game to get somebody into the Souls genre as a whole. You have a friend who likes anime, has a passing interest in the Souls-like genre, but feels it's too daunting to jump into, like a high difficulty one. This might be a good starting point.
You seem different. Untouched by false truths.
Mortal Shell. Now, Mortal Shell has the basics of the genre, but it features plenty of unique mechanics that sets it apart from the competition. Instead of souls, you got tar. Instead of bonfires, you got an NPC called Sester Janessa. She works as a checkpoint, unlocks new abilities, sells you items, and gives you tidbits of information about the world, and appears at different locations during the game. You have 4 distinct hubs or areas to explore with a theme and enemies, native to that location. You play as an empty vessel, kind of looking like a charred human, reminiscent to what's shown at the beginning of Dark Souls. There are 5 different shells, which you can swap at will, and they work as like your classes of the game. You have the typical archetypes, tanker, like a rogue, a balanced, mage, and a unique, DLC class that can use the abilities of other classes. Now, what separates Mortal Shell from other Souls games is its hardening ability. Hardening is a manifestation of your original body. It gives you stone-like skin that can absorb a certain amount of damage before it breaks. Hardening will absorb 100% of the damage of the first hit, regardless of how strong the attack is. You can also attack while your body is hardened, although you will move, more slowly. As a quote-unquote indie, Souls-like, it doesn't get much better than Mortal Shell.
Only minutes ago, an unidentified rocket took off at the Creo launch site just outside Jericho City.
The Surge 2. While the original Surge is still a good Souls-like game, I feel like the Surge 2 just improves upon it in every way. The Surge 1 has a more nuanced way of storytelling, which a lot of people might prefer, whereas the Surge 2 throws most of that away in favor of like a Larian Studios-esque, kind of goofiness to it. Now, if you were to play these back-to-back, it would be a bit jarring, and it all comes down to your personal preference, but I prefer 2 in this case. But let's get into the gameplay stuff, as that's the most important. Now, by far the most unique part of the gameplay is the dismemberment mechanic, which I've never seen in any other game. Instead of killing enemies until they drop, like that really rare 1 out of 100 type of item, you collect gear and weapons by chopping off the body part it's attached to, and collect upgrade materials the same way. So instead of rings or talismans or like a leveling system, you upgrade your stats through implants. Now, implants offer all kinds of features like increasing your health, the injectables you have, or adding a poison immunity. So the Surge 2 builds on an already successful DNA from the first game, but with a more interesting game world than the first, which has more of a focus on exploration than the moment-to-moment gameplay like the Surge. Now, the Surge 2 takes everything good I'd say about the first game and just makes it better. The weapons hit harder, the gameplay is smoother, and the level design has way more variety. But when it comes to story and how it's told, that all comes down to personal preference. Thymesia. Mix Sekiro's gameplay with a visual environment reminiscent of Bloodborne, and you get Thymesia. The exploration is more like Demon Souls, where you have a centralized hub that you can then go to different levels and sections within those levels. After completing the main objective in each location, which ends in a boss fight, side missions are unlocked that take place in the same area. Think of the way that like Nioh handles like non-essential missions, and it's very similar. The main hook to the combat is the plague mechanic, as you play as a plague doctor. With every hit to an enemy, you wound them. This depletes their white health bar to reveal a green bar underneath. If you don't stay on the offensive, wounds will heal and the green will slowly turn back into white. But to deal damage to the green bar, you need to use your claw. Claw attacks can deal standard damage, but they're best at, going for the plague damage instead. It's very similar to Bloodborne, but instead of being aggressive to replenish your own health when you take a hit, you need to be aggressive to deplete the enemy's health even quicker than normal. The only problem is its very short length of around 10 hours and maybe like 20 hours if you're like going for like the platinum trophy, so doing everything. So it kind of feels like we have Bloodborne at home kind of feel. But it is from a very small team, and I'm pretty sure this was their first game. So the sky's the limit for what they can achieve next.
The King's wrath. His army of indefatigable automats that Monsieur de Vaucanson has built for him.
Steelrising. I'm just going to come out and confirm my bias at the start here. I love the developer of this game, Spiders. Been a fan of theirs since 2014, all the way back with Mars War Logs. So when I heard they were going to tackle the Souls-like genre, I was beyond excited. The story is very interesting. In an alternate version of the French Revolution, King Louis XVI has created an army of clockwork automatons, or automats, and rules Paris with fear. Marie Antoinette implores her automat bodyguard Aegis to leave and find her surviving children, as well as what happened with King Louis. All the expected Souls gameplay mechanics are here, including respawning enemies when reaching save points, losing your primary resource upon death, which is called anima essence in this case, and third-person hack-and-slash combat, that has you dodging and using limited consumables to, recover health. The environments are gorgeous, but the game could use a little bit more enemy variety. The biggest problem the game has is that it's not that hard of a Souls-like game, and it can also be made even easier as it's one of the only Souls-like games that has a difficulty option with its assist mode, which gives damage reduction, you keep your anima after death, your endurance, which is, your stamina regeneration speed, and easy cooling, which allows you to get your stamina back faster. Now, if you have friends that just aren't good enough to play Souls games normally and feel like they're missing out, this game is a really good starting place for them, as well as like Code Vein that I mentioned earlier. Nioh. Yes, I'm putting the first game over the second, as I just prefer the story and characters more here than the sequel. Set during the fictionalized version of the year 1600, the plot follows the journeys of William Adams, an Irish sailor named after and inspired by the historic William Adams, an Englishman who became a samurai. The story, in layman's terms, is all about reuniting with your stolen water guardian spirit, waifu, Saoirse, and kill any yokai in your way on that journey. Now, if you were to take Ninja Gaiden and mix it together with the Souls genre, that's essentially what you get with both Nioh games. Learning the key pulse mechanic on how you can quickly recover your ki or your stamina is paramount to succeed in this game. If I had to give it a direct comparison It's very similar to how like Gears of War handles its active reload. Now, even with its wide weapon variety, what matters most is and it's based entirely around different stances and how they impact the attacks that can be carried out. So you have about 4 different stances. With each stance comes pros and cons to different enemies, what Ghost of Tsushima would do around the same time.
Man finally defeated its overlord. But gods do not fall forever.
Lords of the Fallen 2023. Essentially a do-over to the original 2014 Lords of the Fallen, it borrows heavily from the original Dark Souls in tone and atmosphere. The game is set in an interconnected world, one that is several times larger than the one from the original 2014 game. In this game, the worlds are layered on top of each other. The world of Axiom is the world of the living, but players can use a magical lantern to access Umbral, the realm of the dead. Despite sharing the same physical space, an inaccessible area in one realm may be reached by visiting the other realm. Now, while I do appreciate the co-op in this game, the downside is it once again follows the dumbass Far Cry co-op system where your friend gets half experience, only boss drops, and no world items and won't progress, their story when playing along. Now, the variety of different builds you can roll with is amazing and definitely has a high replay value, even more so than other Souls games I personally feel. It's too bad the performance issues at launch all but buried the game, but it did sell 1 million copies in its first 10 days, so it was still a success despite the huge, early fall off. And those are just some of the Souls-like games I can think of off the top of my head that I feel you maybe haven't played and should definitely give a try. Now, I know there's definitely way more, but this list would be endless, and I just don't have that kind of time. As always, thanks for clicking on this video, thanks for watching and liking and commenting, subscribing, all that good stuff. Until the next video, my friends, talk to you next time.